pesar de los avances, la tecnología falla y quizás porque es producto del cerebro humano que falla. Parte de la condición humana es fallar, equivocarse. Convivimos con los errores todo el tiempo y debemos de aprender sobre ellos, sobre el beneficio de equivocarse, de fallar. Y ese será el tema con el que cerramos estas charlas. Y para reflexionar al respecto, los dejo en compañía de Mariano Salinas con el tema Los beneficios de fallar.
Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to talk about how failure is the ultimate teacher. Have you ever noticed how some of the most successful individuals in the world have a string of failures behind them? Take Robert Downey Jr., for example, who used to be a severe drug addict, or billionaire James Dyson, who made thousands upon thousands of failed prototypes before finally making the one Dyson vacuum that saved his company. What is it about failure that seems to be a running theme throughout these success stories? Well, first of all, I think failure has a hidden charm because it often precedes success. It's like the darkness before the light. When we fail, we're forced to realize our own limitations, reformulate our strategy, and eventually grow. However, it's not failure itself that we're drawn to, but the transformation that it can bring about. In fact, studies have found that those who fail early in life are more likely to succeed later on. Why? Because failure teaches us about persistence, adaptability, and the value of hard work. But how exactly does failure transform us? Let's examine it from a neuroscientific point of view. When we fail, our brain gets into hyperdrive. It starts analyzing what went wrong, why it went wrong, and how it went wrong, and how not to do it again in the future. This process actually strengthens our neural pathways and making us wiser and stronger. It's a brain exercise, and each failure is a rep that makes ourselves stronger. However, it's important to acknowledge that failure isn't always a positive force. While it can be a great teacher, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Sometimes failure is just failure. And if we're not careful, it can lead to a cycle of negativity, self-doubt, and many other things. For instance, if someone fails repeatedly without learning or adjusting their approach, it can erode all of their confidence and motivation. Emotionally, failure can be devastating, but it also teaches us empathy and humility. It reminds us that we're human and that perfection is just an illusion. This can make us more compassionate towards others who are struggling and more appreciative of our own successes when they come. In a way, failure humanizes us and connects us to others through shared experiences. The impact of failure also differs depending on the context. A supportive environment can translate failure into learning, while an environment that punishes failure can lead to turning into shame. However, having friends, mentors, or colleagues who are capable of rendering constructive criticism and encouragement is always crucial. Without them, failure can become lonely and overwhelming. Now, let's zoom out. Failure isn't just personal. It shapes teams, organizations, even societies. Think of NASA's Apollo 1 mission in 1967. A cabin fire killed 3 astronauts during a test. Devastating, of course. But the lessons learned from that failure improved safety protocols and engineering rigor that helped land Apollo 11 on the moon 2 years later. Failure, when harnessed correctly, drives the motor of success. In businesses, teams that embrace failure outperform those that don't. At Pixar, early drafts of films like Toy Story were riddled with flaws, wooden characters, and weak plots. But their culture of candid critique and iteration turned those failures into masterpieces. Contrast that with companies that punish mistakes. Innovation halts, progress stalls, and morale tanks. However, it's important to stay disciplined throughout failure because it's almost never a one-time thing. It's a rocky, winding road we all travel. And the key to navigating that road is discipline. It's a steady hand that keeps us moving forward when failure tells us to turn back, to return to our old habits, to be comfortable. However, discipline isn't about perfection. It's about persistence, showing up, and learning, and adapting, no matter how many times we fall to the ground. So, what does discipline look like when failure threatens us? Well, it can help us analyze what went wrong. It helps us dust ourselves off, but most importantly, it gives us the commitment to keep going, even when the results aren't immediate, especially when they aren't immediate. Staying disciplined throughout failure is about playing the long game. It's trusting that every misstep is teaching you something vital, if you're willing to keep walking that long, winding road. In the end, failure is more than a detour. It's a teacher with infinite lessons. It lures us with the promise of growth. It rewires our minds and hearts. It sparks innovation. It binds us in collective strength. And when we let it, it guides us like a mentor. So the next time you fail, don't run from it. Lean in. Ask it questions. Let it shape you. Because every single success, from vacuums to moon landings, stand on a foundation of failures that were faced bravely. Thank you.